This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Great, thank you. I think that was a new voice. Anyway, we're going to do roll call, but before roll call, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have some and welcome some new TCC members here. We have, and I'm really sorry, I'm going to mutilate names, Habibullah Habib from Transplant in the city of Oakley. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. Just do everybody? Sure. Okay, that's a good idea. Well, let me just say the new people, and then we'll do everybody, because that was on my script here. I don't want to not follow script. And then we have alternate member Chris Lau from the county, and alternate member Anthony Nutti, Transpac from the city of Pleasant Hill. So I get to invite them to say a few words to introduce themselves, but maybe as we do our round robin, we can do that. So actually, let's start with Finn at that.
Hi, my name is Finn Wirtz. I'm a transit planner with WestCat.
Hi, my name is Chris Weeks. I'm the Transportation Division Manager for the City of San Ramon and Administrator for the SWAT region.
Hi, I'm Regina Tran, Principal Capital Planning Specialist at AC Transit. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamar Stamps. I'm a principal planner with the Contra Costa County Department of Conservation and Development, and I work with Chris.
Hi, Andy Smith, Director of Planning and Marketing for County Connection.
Hi, I'm Anju Pillai, Engineering Manager, City of Brentwood.
Hi, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Celestine Doe with BART. I'm a Principal Grants Officer.
Leah Greenblatt, I'm the Transportation Planning Manager at WICTAC.
Anthony Nudie, I am Associate Engineer at the City of Pleasant Hill, but I'm also an alternate for Transpac.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nate Levine, Public Works Director and Town Engineer for Town of Moraga.
Good afternoon, Chris Lau, Contra Costa County Public Works Department, Division Manager of our Transportation Engineering Division.
Good afternoon, my name is Habibullah Habib, Senior Civil Engineer with the City of Oakley. I'm glad to be here representing the city and looking forward to working with you all.
Hi, I'm Augustine Diaz. I'm the Manager of Planning and Grants for Tri-Delta Transit.
Thank you all. Erica, do we still need to do roll call?
Yes.
Okay, so
we'll do an official roll call.
We'll reinforce those names.
Okay, Member Diaz.
Here.
Member El Gundi is absent. Member Golier is absent. Member Habib.
Here.
Member Haynes is absent. Member Alt Lau. Member Alt Nudi,
Here.
Member Levine,
Here.
Member Alt Lockman is absent. Member Alt McTeevy, on behalf of new member McGuire, not here yet. Member Nelson, absent. Member Pillai,
Here.
Member Redmond, Member Smith,
Present.
Member Stamps,
Here.
Member Tran, Member Weeks,
Here.
Member Wertz,
Here.
Vice Chair Doe,
Here.
and Chair Greenblatt. And we do have a quorum with El Gundi, Golier, Member Alt Lockman, McTeevy, Nelson, and Redmond absent.
I think, did we miss
1,
our
2, 3.
new member, Newty?
Nudie, yes.
No, I think you said my name.
Oh, okay. All right, the first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak on an item during public comment, an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call on you. I'm not seeing any hands go up. Erica, do we have any virtual?
I do not
comments?
have any virtual or in-person public comments.
Okay, that concludes our public comment item then. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent calendar? And then public comment on the consent calendar. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand and or staff or we'll call on you. Erica, have we received any written in-person or remote comments?
I have not received any written in-person or remote public comment.
Great. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
That's Member Smith. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Member Weeks. Erica, please conduct a roll call vote.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Habib,
Yes.
Member Outlaw,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Nudi,
Yes.
Member Pillai,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Aye.
Member Stamps,
Aye.
Member Tran,
Aye.
Member Weeks,
Yes.
Member Wertz,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doe,
Yes.
Chair Greenblatt.
Aye.
I think I got everybody. And the motion passes unanimously with members absent.
Great, thank you. The first item on the agenda, on our regular agenda, is an informational item and will be presented by Jay Zhang to provide an update on upcoming projects.
Good afternoon, committee members. Jay Zhang, Associate Engineer with CCTA. Before you, this is an informational item to report to the committee on the project status in the county that has state and federally funded money on the project. So I'll just get started. First up is the STIP projects. I know we have had some allocation requests and extension requests that were approved at the June CTC meeting. And so I think all the project on the list is looking pretty good in terms of schedule. So I would just ask everyone to be mindful of the deadlines that are maybe approaching in a couple months, because CTC does require a 60-day, I guess, preparation time for the agenda. So you have to submit your requests quite early. And then for all the OBAC projects, as you all know, the OBAC 3 program is approaching its tail end. So as we move into fiscal year 27, I believe this is the last year for OBAC 3 projects to allocate their funding. And so we do still have about 8 or 9 projects on the list. So I would ask everyone to make sure to allocate their funding ahead of the fiscal year deadline, which will be September 30th, 2027. And also we do have, OBAC 4 coming up. So Matt's here. There's an item on the agenda which he'll talk about later. And then for active transportation program, again, there's some allocation and extension request that went to the June CDC. And so I believe all the projects are still on schedule. And so it's looking pretty good again. And then last but not least, we do have the FHWA inactive project list. So these are the projects that are federally funded that hasn't invoiced through local assistance in the past 6 months. And so the funds might be at risk if there is an extended period of no invoicing. So I would ask all the sponsors on the list to please work with your finance team and local assistant engineer to submit the invoice as soon as possible. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I had a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Is DLAE, is that Department of Local Assistance?
Yes.
What's the E for?
District Local Assistant Engineer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good one. Thanks. Okay. Now on to public comment on this item. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any written, in-person, or remote public comments?
I have not received any written or in-person or virtual public comments.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Jay. The next item on our agenda is informational and will be presented by Matt Kelly to provide an update on the Coordinated Call for Projects program. Take it away, Matt.
Good afternoon, Chair Greenblatt, TCC members, Matt Kelly, Director of Planning at CCTA. Let's see, my camera is on. I don't have a presentation for this item, but I do want to point to the staff report and the attachment for this item. I can bring it up on screen, the attachment if need be, but really, oh, I brought it up already. I'm going to, well, I'll stop sharing for now, but anyway, thank you, Erica. So I'm here to talk about the Coordinated Call for Projects, which you guys saw a fair bit of over the last few months. We've moved past the development of it, and hopefully everybody is working on applications. But what I'm here to talk to you about is, one, give you an update on the process so far, and then just generally talk to you about the process for the screening and scoring of the projects that will come through the TCC and specifically the TCC scoring subcommittee. So just wanted to give you an update. The call for projects was released on June 23rd. The deadline is August 17th. So that's why I hope you are actively working on an application. We did During our official office hours that we made available, we met with 22 different potential sponsors or partners. We spoke to folks like Transform, who were potentially interested in working with others, being a part of kind of the outreach on a project sponsor's project. And then since then, that was the last week of June and the first week of, the first 2 weeks of July, basically. And since then, we've done about 5 or 6 additional meetings. So we're approaching about 30 meetings with project sponsors. So we know there's interest out there. We are also actively meeting with cities or jurisdictions to discuss the Phase 2 of the Smart Signals countywide program. So Andy Dillard did sit in a lot of those office hours with jurisdictions, especially those who had been involved in Phase 1. He's now reaching out individually to jurisdictions to talk about the Phase 2 scope and get consensus from each participating agency on their interest and what components of the scope they are interested in, whether it's new signals being pulled in or additional features and software subscriptions and things like that. We are also, as we talk to sponsors about projects, and we kind of get a feel that the project may do well under the TFCA scoring category for the additional bikeways. We are running those projects through there, so we kind of have a heads up kind of on the potential for those projects to score well for TFCA. So we can hopefully direct some funding off the top, or some projects off the top, to be funded by TFCA, so they won't have to compete with, with the other competitive pots. That's also the goal with CARE. So we've got CARE, as a reminder, is the funding for community-based transportation plans. We've had a little bit of interest there, so we hopefully will have at least a few candidates for that funding, and that, projects receiving CARE funding must be found in a community-based transportation plan. So it limits the number of projects, but there are a few sponsors out there that are aware of that and have found projects that kind of meet that they would consider sponsoring. Their agency would consider sponsoring. So so things are looking good on filling those kind of external kind of pots of money that are new to this coordinated call for projects and don't have quite the same guidelines as the others. That brings us to today, and what we really wanted to talk about today, or at least allow you to talk about, was the scoring for the OBAG 4 projects and what that process would look like. So starting on the 17th, we will close the application window. CCTA staff and our consultants will do an initial kind of eligibility screening, and as well as a screening for what we'll call best fit, program best fit. That's where we're kind of, like I said, directing projects towards the TFCA or CARE if they're eligible, and then other projects towards TLC, PBTF, or OBAG 4. That would be an initial kind of draft screening that would then go in front of the TCC subcommittee for their kind of stamp of approval, or if they wanted to, play around with that best fit assessment that we'll provide them, but we wanted to at least do some legwork. So the scoring that wasn't all on the scoring subcommittee. So we figure that'll take about 2 weeks from the time that the submittals are due, and then we would convene a first meeting with the scoring subcommittee to go over that screening and then to start the scoring process. And then probably have another meeting of that committee probably in mid-September to finalize their decisions. However, timing-wise, it would really make sense to have everything approved at the September TCC meeting. However, timing-wise, the scoring subcommittee may not have had time to reconvene and really finalize their recommendations for the OBAG scoring that we would want this entire body to approve before it goes to our board. So we may consider a special meeting date for the September TCC meeting, which may be maybe moving it a week back. But we will Erica will coordinate with you on that. But for those who are on the scoring subcommittee, expect a meeting around the end of August and sometime in early September. But once again, Erica will help us coordinate with that. Sorry, I lost my notes here. Are there any questions so far on what I've talked about?
Hi, Matt. For the evaluation by the TCC subcommittee, what does that look like in terms of time? Are we supposed to be at home or from office, like reviewing them, or do we come together and view them all together? What's the time?
Yeah, so I think we're open to that, but I think initially we would want to convene as a group, whether that's virtually or in person. Probably virtually would be easier. In person would probably make for a more, if you wanted to do a group scoring session, in person would probably be easier for that. But we are open to that. We're also open to you just scoring at home. Whatever, I'm totally open to discussing that today. So if the members want to discuss that today, otherwise we'll kind of reach out to the members individually and try and come up with a preferred method of scoring, but we are open to a group or individual.
Can you refresh our memories on who volunteered? Because I think that there were some openings still.
I think we had filled them, and gosh, I really wish I had brought that information with me today. But I know we have Matt Redman, who I thought is here somewhere. There he is. So we have
Aaron Elias, I think, from Concord, I want to say.
yes. No, that was
Oh,
it was
that's right.
between
Never
the two
mind.
of
He's
them.
on something.
And I think Matt got the short end of the stick on that one. Others might need to remind me. I can pull it up eventually, but it might take me a minute. But we will be reaching out to those members. We had a member from each sub-region as well as a transit member. I think that was you, Celestine. We might have had another transit person that was representing a sub-region. I'm sorry, I should have brought that list in with me. But anybody want to admit that they're on the scoring subcommittee? Nate. Okay.
Thank you all. Are there other comments or questions for?
So I think maybe what you're referring to, Leah, was member Janney's, member Lockman's was initially named, but I think then there was some feedback that she was not interested. Is that the opening you're thinking of?
She was concerned about a conflict of interest, and then we explained that you don't score your own jurisdiction's projects, but I hadn't heard any further on that.
And that was part of the memo that, you know, to
Yeah.
memorialize that. So hopefully that alleviated that concern, but if we do need to, let's talk if we need to still fill that West County.
Yeah, I'd check with her.
Could we also clarify for the TLC and PBTF, like, I know that for WICTAC, our TAC is going to be evaluating the TLC for that. So all the sub-regional TLCs will be evaluated by each RTPC. So it's 3 out of the 4.
Correct, West Central and Southwest. Yeah. So part of the screening will be, you know, directing those projects to those TLC eligible projects to the RTPCs for their scoring, and same with the PBTF to this Countywide Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, who will be having a similar conversation with at their meeting in a week and a half. I also wanted to point out, you know, in terms of the projects that this scoring subcommittee will be scoring, it does include those countywide programs that CCTA will be submitting that we talked about a lot in June, in addition to competitive projects that come in. So this group will be providing input on all of those. There was a lot of concern that those countywide programs would not be kind of scored in parallel or with the other applications that come in for OBAG 4, and they absolutely will.
Yes.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, as you mentioned, Andy Dillard's been going around and talking about the next iteration of the smart signals, which is great. Will the Safe Routes to School program be doing the same thing, making their rounds as well, just knowing that we're getting a little tight on time?
Yeah, you know, I think they are working on it right now. They're working on a scope. They are working with 511 CCTA, so I think a lot of it will be based on discussions they've had or knowledge they have of where the needs are, but there will be some outreach as part of that to develop the scope.
I have 2 questions, kind of related to the other comments that we've received. So for the smart signal phase 2, how are cross-jurisdictional corridors being coordinated?
Like a route that travels through several jurisdictions and none of them want to kind of if none of them want to claim responsibility or
they're interested,
Or
or
interest, yeah.
one is and one isn't, like what forum are you using to coordinate that?
So, yeah, so we've proposed kind of at least on the new locations, we've proposed filling in the gaps. So we have a proposed kind of set of locations that we feel kind of fills in those gaps where there were gaps identified in phase 1. So now as part of that, as part of the outreach to the local agencies, we're proposing those locations. They don't, I guess, necessarily have to accept them, but, you know, today we met with, for example, Richmond, and, you know, showed them the new locations on Richmond Parkway and San Pablo Avenue. You know, we're asking for their concurrence on that. So if we hear back that they're not interested in those locations, I guess that is a conversation we'll probably want to have, because there are some gaps that we're trying to target in phase 2.
I know time is short. There's not a lot of time. It's kind of unfortunate that we're not using the RTPCs to have that coordination discussion. My other question had to do with, you were explaining the process where the projects will get, I guess, reviewed, and, you know, you'll kind of decide where the best fit is for them. How are projects that are potentially good fits with multiple funding sources going to be handled?
Yeah, so I mean, most projects that come in, I would imagine, will have a fit with more than one program. So yeah, that's an assessment that once we have all the projects in, we know what the capacity is for each program. We can start with those ones that we can take off the top, like I said, for TFCA or CARE, then really focus in on, well, who's willing to take on federal funds and is eligible for OBAG 4. And then, I think, in my mind, starting with that, and then we'll have TLC as kind of like where a lot of the other projects can go. But we're really gonna try and make a assessment of best fit and where we think the projects will be most competitive. So
So then would a
4
project only be eligible for one of the funding sources? Like how would a,
Not necessarily. So the scoring committee is going to have to, what we've been talking to project sponsors about is really making their applications not just scalable, but so we understand if we did need to break it up by phase to split between funding programs, that information is there. Because of the timing, we aren't going to have a lot of back and forth with every project sponsor trying to say, well, I wonder if this, if they could break up this project in a logical manner so that we could phase something through OBAG 4 and something through TLC. So we're really encouraging the applications to really make that clear so that and that's something the scoring committees, ultimately it'll be not the screening committee, but the scoring committees will be having to make that decision. So the OBAG 4 will be happening first, so we'll see what we can fund there. If there's projects that maybe only get partially funded through OBAG 4, if there's an opportunity to then fund the remaining portion through TLC or PBTF, that is definitely something we want to consider. We just don't know until we get everything in.
so something that gets funded partially through OBAG, would it automatically be then considered for these other funding sources? And then I guess also I haven't looked at the application in enough detail, like where you're saying like you want that information about how to phase it and that kind of thing. Is that included, like is that prompted in the application?
I mean, it's under I would say it's encapsulated under the funding plan. But yeah, we ask for that type of phasing detail. Yeah. Is there
Any other questions? Yes.
Quick question. Matt, you mentioned that you will be screening the projects first for OBAG and then determining what falls under that and then shifts to the other requirements. But I know that for OBAG, certain type of projects would require some additional analysis, which the others might not. So I am curious how you will handle that. Like, for example, for signal projects, typically OBAG would need like a air quality calculation, right? So, but I don't think the other funding sources would need that. So I'm curious how you would handle that. Do we have to, worry about air quality calculations right away during the application? Or is that something that can be considered later?
Yeah, so for OBAG 4, there's a lot of kind of additional requirements, including, the MTC's local resolution of local support, sorry. And we've confirmed with them that these kind of ancillary, requirements do not need to be in place until actually the TIP is programmed. So basically early next year when MTC programs the projects and then enters it into the TIP is when all of those kind of things need to be in place. It would be nice if everything was in place, by the time we adopted everything in our program and submit to MTC, but, you know, nothing's finalized until MTC does their scoring of the projects that we submit.
So to clarify, MTC would not score OBAG funds based on the supplemental information we are not submitting at this point.
Colin, I don't know if you have any input here, but we wouldn't be for that air quality, no, that would not count against, everybody would be treated the same.
Got
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And how does an applicant know what they can and can't skip at this point?
Colin, do you want to weigh in here? Just, I think on that air quality, I think, one, if you are telling us you are interested in taking on federal funds, so that will be kind of a indicator that you should fill out the air quality form. If you were not intending your project, and I think in most cases, folks who are planning on taking on the federal funds or are comfortable taking on the federal funds and willing to provide the local match, I think those folks kind of are looking at OBAG in general and should be looking at those types of requirements. If you're not taking on federal fund, willing to take on federal funds, which is a question in the questionnaire, then you shouldn't fill out that form.
I'm still not understanding, sorry. So let's say an applicant wants to take on the responsibility of federal funds, and then there's these additional requirements that are needed, but they don't really have to have them by August 17th. How would you know which you need to include by August 17th and which you can hold off?
Yeah, and Colin, maybe you can clarify, do they have to have that filled out with the application?
If I recall the way we did it in cycle 3, it's meant to be submitted at the time of application. However, there might be some flexibility as to working with the project sponsor to develop the form further.
Sorry, I was speaking earlier to that resolution of local support, which they did tell us was not required until TIP amendment early next year. So I'll defer to Colin on the air quality form.
So we can wait on this local, the resolution of support. There's air quality analysis that you do want. Is there anything else that can wait? I mean, it's just such a short deadline. I don't want people to go crazy working on something that can come after August 17th. How do we know what's required and what's not?
Sure. I mean, it should be, if you look at the coordinated call for projects, it should be in the table in the schedule. And there is some flexibility built into the language.
Can you call that up so we can look at it, please?
Are you talking about the guidelines?
We can't call stuff up on this computer?
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, that one.
Are there any other questions we could kind of address?
I was looking quickly through your material, and it appears that depending on the criteria of the project, I think one of them is OBAG 4 being over $1 million in your request, then the air quality forms are required at the application. And I think, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we're asking is we need to explicitly understand what's required, when it's required, and there should be no ambiguity on our end. And if that's not the case, then we will struggle.
Thank you.
So
And as you know, that's what the office hours are intended for, is to work through this kind of stuff.
I would push back and say
Right.
that we cannot be part of an office hour.
no.
Please ensure it's clear.
No, so what was in the guidelines, that is the intent. I'm sorry, we don't have them in front of us or memorized for that matter. Unfortunately, probably should. But yes, the guidelines were put together using, MTC's guidance. So I would defer to that $1 million. And that, now that you're saying it, Nate, that does jog my memory, so.
Thank you. All right. Celestine, did you have a question?
Which sections are you referring to? Because, I mean, it's very long. I'm just trying to figure out, like, so it's part of the CMAQ, like air quality?
Okay. Any other questions on this item, comments? Yes.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Is mostly stuff I just want to confirm, because obviously with, short timeline, juggling a lot of things, and other people have been finding out answers for me. One, for joint applications where it's, 2 or more jurisdictions going in together on an application, do both agencies need to submit board or council resolutions of support, or only the primary applicant?
Only the primary.
Oh.
There needs to be some, not a resolution of local support, but something that ties the partner agency to the project. But
And could that just be like a letter of support from staff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then as far as where we do need to submit a resolution, say if we're the primary or if it's our own application, I was just hearing that, yeah, we can get, those can come in after August 17th. Is that true for all of the funding sources in here? And I ask because our board is dark in July, and so we, doesn't meet until August 17th, or August 20th, I mean.
yeah, we understand that's nearly impossible. So for OBAG, as I mentioned, MTC's requirement won't be until their program is adopted. So for our resolution of local support, we will be adopting our program scheduled for December. So that would be, yeah.
And that's true in some shape or form for all of the funding sources through? Cool. And then just one, and I've heard the answer through somebody, but I just want to confirm. For joint applications, again, multiple jurisdictions submitting together for one application, is it true that those do not count against the limit of applications that could be submitted individually by a jurisdiction?
Multi-jurisdictional applications are considered kind of a unique application and don't count against.
Cool beans. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions? This has been very helpful.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, yes.
So could an agency be the primary with a multi-agency application on multiple submittals?
Yes.
Okay.
And those don't count against, for the primary applicant, that doesn't count against their.
They would still be able to submit to
Cool.
Walnut Creek or County Connection. Yeah.
Or 4 if you're the county.
Sure.
Thanks.
I think no one's sleeping until after August 17th with all these applications that are going to be created. All right, last opportunity for questions for these guys on this item. Let's see if there's any public comment. Erica, have you received any written, in-person, or remote public comment?
I do not have any written or in-person public comment.
Great, thank you. All right. Moving on to our next item, which is an informational item, which will also be presented by Matt Kelly. He will be providing an update on the Countywide Transportation Plan 2050.
Thank you, Chair Greenblatt. Good afternoon again, TCC members. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So here to talk about draft CTP 2050, our countywide transportation plan for the year 2050. We've come in front of this group a couple of times throughout the process, but we've been working very closely with a lot of other kind of internal and external committees, which I'll go over, that have gotten us to the draft. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. Let's see. So just want to remind everybody about the process that we've been through and kind of the reason for the CTP. The CTP is really the vision document for Contra Costa County in terms of transportation and aligning transportation and land use. It's foundational not only for our planning processes, but it also kind of sets the vision for our future transportation expenditure plan, and also feeds the regional transportation plan, MTC's Plan Bay Area 2050. So it really is foundational for CCTA and feeds a lot of kind of larger efforts as well. Sorry, I just need to move some stuff around here. Okay. So next slide. Am I missing a slide? Sorry. Okay. So as I mentioned, we've been engaging with folks like TCC and others for a while now, almost 2 years. It involved a technical needs assessment, 3 phases of community and stakeholder engagement, and that is all what kind of fed into the recommendations of the CTP. The first phase involved development of a blueprint, which was approved by our board last June, and that really laid out the framework for development of the entire CTP, including the approach to outreach and technical analysis. And since then, we've been developing the core components and recommendations of CTP 2050. The blueprint is the policy foundation of the CTP. It establishes the vision, the guiding principles, and the strategies which respond to both regulatory landscape and the policy landscape in the state and the Bay Area, as well as key issues facing Contra Costa. The core recommendations of the plan include transformative visions, which we've talked about here, project examples like our 5-star projects, and then policies and programs that advance the vision. We're also preparing a business plan, which is kind of a companion document to the CTP, which covers actions that CCTA will undertake to implement CTP 2050, including project delivery strategies, updates to business practices, and funding options, as well as potential changes to the growth management program. So this is the vision statement. Contra Costa residents, workers, businesses, and visitors will thrive through safe, multimodal transportation systems that support a strong economy, equitable and accessible communities, and climate resilience. Pretty catchy, huh? Anyways, that was adopted by our board a few years ago, but vetted by a lot of people and wordsmithed. Yeah, wordsmithed to death, as I recall. But our board agreed on it, which was the important part. So the blueprint defines 4 guiding principles aligned with the vision. That includes safe travel, access for all, connected neighborhoods, and growing sustainably. You can read what the themes of those are. We've discussed those here before. I can certainly answer any questions about those, but I'm not going to read through each of them, but all very important. So going on to our outreach. So how we partnered with communities and stakeholders throughout the process. So phase one focused on identifying needs and opportunities and developing the policy foundation for the blueprint and the CTP. Phase two sought input on the proposed transformative visions, which are a set of approaches for improving transportation across the county. Phase three gathered feedback on the proposed CTP safety and climate adaptation and resilience policies. So we went out and really tested some of the policies that we figured would elicit the most response. So a summary of our activities. We had, let's see, 2 phases of online surveys, which generated over 5,000 comments. We had 15 pop-up events, significant social media and digital radio ads, 4 focus groups, direct outreach to our partners and community-based organizations. We reached out to over 100 CBOs and developed what we called ambassadors, a set of ambassadors that were really kind of spreading the message and eliciting feedback to kind of their constituents. And then we had 35 separate group discussions as part of our stakeholder engagement. That included our CTP task force, which some of you were on. That's our staff level working group, as well as our CTP stakeholders, which are advocates, CBOs, and then our ad hoc subcommittee of our board, amongst many others. And yeah, here's a summary of the stakeholder meetings, so you can see where we were at, the RTPCs, the board, the task force, the CAC here. Yeah, a lot of meetings. So let's dig into CTP 2050. We'll talk about the key components and recommendations of the plan. So the core recommendations of the CTP include the transformative visions, the policies, those recommended updates to the growth management program that I mentioned, and then a list of projects and programs that, you know, are the kind of the public face of the plan. And you know, as you may know, the plan is financially unconstrained, so it's got a lot of projects and programs in it to consider, but I'll talk about those in just a minute. So the transformative visions. Create people first streets. It's the first one. Build a complete reliable transit network and provide reliable freeway travel. When we first went out for public outreach and stakeholder outreach, we started with 4 transformative visions, but those were kind of whittled and combined. I won't say whittled, I'll say combined into 3 kind of more robust visions, and these are what we landed on. So Create People First Streets is really about making streets safe and friendly for everybody, safer ways to get to school, whether that's you know, on a you know, like the Lumber into School Bus program, or safe routes to schools, safe and smooth traffic flow, and then high quality paths and trails. The Build a Complete Reliable Transit Network is all about show up and go transit network. So, you know, really short frequencies that encourage folks to just show up, and there will be a vehicle there for them before too long. transit for all neighborhoods, so finding the right fit for all parts of the county, regional connections for those traveling across, across subregions or across counties or the region, and then accessible and seamless transit. Can't forget the highways. A lot of our stakeholders and board members are very concerned about congestion and delay. So alleviate freeway bottlenecks where we can. There are some, we can't really widen our freeways, but there are targeted operational improvements that we can make to address bottlenecks. Smart lane management, really getting the most out of our freeways, getting the most out of the current capacity using technology. And then rapid recovery freeways, basically addressing congestion and non-reoccurring congestion when it happens. So when there's incidents, having a network of tow trucks or other vehicles that can address and get traffics back to free flow or whatever they were prior to the incident. So as most of you know, we really needed a way to kind of demonstrate to the public and stakeholders what the transformative visions look like on the ground. So we came up with this idea of these 5-star projects, these example projects that really illustrate how, we think, how best we think the plan can be implemented through projects. And so for each of those visions, we've provided some example projects. These example projects were developed through an RFI we did last fall, where we reached out to all the local agencies and project sponsors in the county and looked for ideas from them that they felt met the kind of the spirit of the request for information. And we received about 40 different projects, all of which were deemed to be 5-star projects, but we kind of handpicked some examples, so to speak, to really, like a short list that we could really trot out, in presentations and people could understand. But really, there's a much longer list of these types of projects that we really feel like will be kind of the foundation for our transportation expenditure plan. And so it includes projects like the 23rd Street Multimodal Corridor Project in Richmond and San Pablo, downtown Walnut Creek Protected Bikeway Circuit, expansion of the school bus program, our countywide smart signals program, expanding high-quality trail corridors like Iron Horse, like the Arinda-Moraga Trail, really building up our transit infrastructure, including the San Pablo Avenue corridor, Try My Ride, an expansion of that successful program by Tri-Delta in East County, express bus service here through Central County on 680, building out the Hercules Multimodal Transit Center, Contra Costa College Regional Mobility Hub, and then on the freeways, we have the State Route 4 operational improvements, Transit Priority Corridor, also on State Route 4, and a project that is designed to really address those rapid recovery freeways, which would be an expansion of the freeway service patrol or similar in Contra Costa County. So we established 8 policies as part of the CTP to really define our approach to transportation investment and put some parameters around it. Those policies are livable streets, safety, land use, equity, climate adaptation and resilience, performance-based planning, transit, and the transit policy really comes out of the integrated transit plan, which is nearing completion right now and really went through a very, focused process of developing transit policies and recommendations. So we kind of have borrowed from the ITP for that, and then a maintenance and operations policy. Just a summary of some of our policy commitments that have emerged out of those 8 policies is that we would establish incentives for jurisdictions to adopt policies that reduce exposure, severity, and likelihood of collisions, so really addressing safety in a big way, align all investments with roadway design guidance in the Livable Streets playbook, so tying back to the blueprint and that movement in place framework, and really making sure that we're investing in roadway design that is context sensitive and that is sensitive to the activity in the location, the land use, and the nature of the transportation system. All programs will be need-based and focus on providing access and mobility for underserved users. So we really want to, promote equity going forward, including seniors, youth, and people with disabilities. Evaluate investments for opportunities to address emergency evacuation and climate resilience. We know there are folks that are already doing that and being kind of thinking ahead on that, but it's something we want to kind of bring to the forefront and make sure all projects are considering evacuation and resilience in general. Establish a performance-based planning network to guide investment and monitor effectiveness. So really that we're looking at, how does this project benefit evacuation? How does it benefit resilience? How does it benefit equity communities? So really being performance-based when we're making decisions, and monitoring that so you know what the level of effectiveness is. And then support multimodal improvements in transit serving areas. So to the growth management program, all 19 jurisdictions in the county are required to be in compliance with the growth management program. Adding requirements to that, to the current list of 13, isn't something we take lightly, because it is onerous for those 20 jurisdictions to remain compliant. However, this is not something that would just happen on its own. It would happen as part of a transportation expenditure plan where the growth management program is up for discussion, and there may be, where you're talking about maybe, potentially increasing return to source, which is what, the growth management program compliance is, gets you, is that those return to source funds in return for, adhering to these requirements. So what has been recommended coming out of the CTP for future potential changes to the growth management program is our updates to the traffic impact analysis requirements for new developments, to clarify that these TIAs now only apply to discretionary projects, as land use authorities know, that you have a lot less control over the development projects that are coming in front of you, and in terms of your approvals, so that this wouldn't apply to by right or ministerial projects, but really this is supporting changes to state law, and just making sure the growth management program addresses those changes. Let's see, and then add a checklist item to ensure that the livable streets policy is incorporated, and that would be through development of objective design standards for adjacent roadways. Those, we have already developed ODS as part of CTP, so we have those available if anybody is interested to look at those. But really, this would, seek to make sure, what I mentioned earlier, that when projects are being designed, that they are incorporating these components and these standards that really, and it really kind of, in general, ODS kind of makes the process easier because you have kind of a standard list of things to choose from. So incorporating that into the growth management program. So modernizing the TSM program. I don't even like saying TSM because it's such old nomenclature, but that's what's memorialized currently in the growth management program because it was memorialized back in 2009. Updating it to reflect current TDM practices, including parking reforms and multimodal priorities. We think that's really important, and tying it closely with 511 Contra Costa strategies and their programs, and really tying kind of mitigation around development back to 511 Contra Costa and the ability to mitigate through our current TDM strategies. And then finally, update implementation guidance for TIAs and our action plans for routes of regional significance that emphasize roadway safety, multimodal access, and complete streets over vehicle delay. Our latest action plan updates really tried to do that because of the change from level of service to VMT in CEQA under SB 743, but really memorialized that in the growth management program. I mentioned that project list that is unconstrained. So as probably most of you know, we have what we call the CTPL, the Comprehensive Transportation Project List, which has every project that has ever been, on anyone's radar. So it is wildly unconstrained. We allow project sponsors to enter projects in there that have, have a sponsor, have a definition, and have a scope and a dollar cost. So that gets you in the CTPL. That certainly doesn't mean that project is advancing towards implementation. It doesn't mean that it's even still supported, a few years down the road. But at one time, these projects were supported, and they were last updated through a call for projects in 2023. So at that point, we received new information on these projects, hopefully received information on projects that were no longer supported or had a change in scope. We don't know what we don't know, but as part of the draft CTP being out there, we're hopeful that folks can take another look at that project list and let us know if they see any items that need correction. We heard from City of Concord isn't here today. We heard about a couple of projects of theirs that have come to completion since this was last updated. It also does include the projects received in 2025 through the 5-star projects RFI. So about 1,200 projects. You can see most of them are local roadway projects, complete streets, and a lot of kind of transit-related projects. We wanted to kind of separate out from the fray the projects that were modelable or that really had some sort of impact projects that we could share with the public that they would understand. We called those our named projects. They were generally cost of $10 million or more. The majority of our project list, well, 75% of the cost is comprised of just about 15% of the projects. So these named projects are about 15% of the entire list, but are about 78% of the total cost, which is about $21.6 billion. The map shows kind of their distribution over the county. You can see very well distributed and very, modally and spatially. But as I mentioned, it's entirely unconstrained. We also, as part of the countywide transportation plan, are continuing our countywide programs. Most of those are probably familiar to you. We believe the projects are, as important, if not more important than the projects. I'm sure that's debatable in this room. But really, these programs really support those capital investments. They also provide, ways of certain underserved communities of accessing the capital improvements. So reduced fare transit passes, school bus programs, safe routes to school, mobility for our senior and disabled communities, 511 CCTA and providing the TDM services around the county, development of our mobility hubs, and our smart signals operations. These are the programs recommended to continue through at least the next 4 years, if not through the life of Measure J and really through 2050. So next steps. I didn't talk a lot about our EIR. So does a CTP require an EIR? No. Measure J requires CCTA to prepare and update our CTP. Also, as a congestion management agency, we are required to prepare a CTP under MTC guidelines. So that is something we've done since 1995. However, what we also did in 1995 is prepare an environmental impact report. We didn't need to, but at the time our board decided to, and subsequent to that, each CTP, our legal counsel has advised that because we set a precedence back in 1995, that we continue to prepare EIRs, otherwise we make ourselves vulnerable to challenge. We don't, we also see value in it. Especially when going into the TEP process, we've kind of taken a look at the range of potential investments and done an analysis of that and its impact on the environment. So, the board feels like it adds value, it provides some protection to us. It does do some tiering for those projects, at least at a programmatic level. So, it does add time, cost, process, but our board has decided that it is, worth doing both on the legal side and for the value it does add to us. So we plan on issuing the notice of preparation for the EIR, and the project description is basically the policies, projects and programs from the CTP. So that is the project. So we will be evaluating the project against no project in year 2050. So we release the notice of preparation next week. There will be a 30-plus day review period, including a public scoping meeting that will be held on August 6th. We then expect to release the draft EIR early next year for circulation. The EIR and will come back to this board along with the final CTP 2050 for adoption of both those documents. At that time, we will forward the action plans for routes of regional significance back to the RTPCs with there may be some potential recommended changes that come out of the CTP, policy changes that may be recommended for inclusion in the final action plans when your RTPCs adopt them next spring. So you probably remember working on the action plans a few years ago, and now they've been just kind of sitting around gathering dust. Unfortunately, the CTP process was extended longer than we thought, and so those action plans don't become the in-play action plans or the adopted action plans until the CTP is adopted, and then the action plans go back to the RTPCs for their adoption. So it's kind of a weird non-circular process, but that's just the process. So, so for those of you who are on the RTPCs, you can expect to see the action plans back in your court, probably, March or April, somewhere around then.
Okay, is that the end of your?
That's the end.
It's a very complex and interconnected document that I know has taken a lot of time to produce a draft. I'll say, just to kind of start it all off, our comments, I have a hard time understanding how all the different components relate to one another. I don't get it. Maybe it's just beyond my ability, but there's a lot of interesting things in subsections that if any of these other folks are like me, I have questions on those to try to understand them, and I hope that this will provide a forum for doing that. But to kind of start off, what's the process for if we do have comments on these to get these, is there an official form to submit comments on, or is there a due date to submit comments on the draft CTP? How do you want to handle that?
I mean, I would say to this group, we've really vetted, if you're talking about like the transformative visions and those types of things, those have been vetted and adopted, approved by our.
Just anything.
Yeah. Sure. So right now we'll have a 30-day, the NOP is out for 30 days. We're posting the draft for review before we start the EIR. We can take any feedback.
Okay, so if a jurisdiction wanted to submit comments, now's the time to do that in writing, and we would send those to you?
To myself, yeah.
Okay.
And I would try and focus your comments at this point on that project list, but open to other comments. But really, that's what's going to be the main input into the EIR.
Okay. So I wanted to start out and see if there are any questions from the committee. Yes.
Quick question. I think I heard you say that the 5-star project list, the full list, includes everything that was submitted by jurisdictions. And I think that's in Appendix C, which doesn't appear to be included in the version of the draft CTP that's attached to this agenda item. So I found another one online that did have it, from somewhere else. I mean, Google found it somewhere else on the 2CTA website. And I noticed that our 3 5-star projects that we submitted are not on there, and there is a project on there involving us that we did not submit. So I'm just wondering, maybe what the other file that I found was now out of date, but would we just want to confirm that?
So I'm trying to remember what we linked to in the doc. There is the full draft CTP with all the appendices is on our website. We have a CTP page, and that's what the, I think in your packet was an introduction, chapter 1, and then there should have been a link to the full document.
So the,
So I think that would be a good comment to
Yeah,
put in writing
that-
to them before.
well.
You
I mean,
can
that-
even
that's not
call
so
me
much
on
like
that
a-
one.
That's not really a comment on
Yeah.
like, you know, in response to the NOP. That's just more like, hey, maybe there was an oversight.
Yeah,
Fix this.
I would like to go back and revisit that, yeah, and just make sure that your projects did make it onto that list.
Okay.
We can always update that appendix.
Okay, I'll just resend you the list. And I can just, that's easy.
Oh, just follow up on that. So really, whatever we've submitted over the past couple years, because if they're in the CTPL and the 5-star ones that we submitted, they all should be in there.
They all should be in there.
And if there's anything that's on the 5-star list automatically put onto the CTP project list?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
So, like I noticed in West County on the 5-star project list that I did find on the CCTA website page, that there's no highway projects in West County. How would we, there's been talk about doing bus on shoulder and, there's some other things like that. How do those get included?
As part of the 5-star projects or just in general?
Well, I thought, like, if you go back to that section where it talks about 5-star projects and it talks about, what is it? Reliable freeway travel. And I know West County has considerable delay on its freeways, and a number of studies have been done to look at improvements on there. And I just noticed that there aren't any highway projects listed in West County. So,
And are you referring to this slide or the full list?
I was referring to the full list.
Okay. So we didn't get any, I guess, official submittals for that. That's not to say there aren't projects in the full project list that address that, like, projects from the I-80 DAA. But in terms of, 5-star project submittals, we didn't.
So if we wanted to, is it too late to submit something like that? I think just like, again, like kind of seeing this as the starting point for the TEP, that, if you're looking at West County residents, the majority of them are going to be like, oh, congestion's horrible on our highways and there's nothing here.
Yeah, why don't you submit that as a comment, and we will consider that, yeah. We don't want to reopen the whole 5-star project thing, but if there's projects that you feel that, if there's something missing, we can consider that.
Other folks have comments? Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Matt, for the presentation. It gets better and better every time.
Last night.
I did, yeah, what a meeting. So I have a question and maybe a comment about the updates to the growth management program, or recommended updates to the growth management program and the policy memos in Appendix D. So is it the intent of the authority to institute all of the recommendations from those policy memos verbatim as checklist requirements?
Sorry, the 4 items or any or other items from the policy papers?
So each of those policy memos
Yeah.
is pretty comprehensive and pretty explicit about the expectations of local jurisdictions when it comes to, so CTP 2050 will be the foundation for the new sales tax measure if passed in 2028. And so presumably, when we, the local jurisdictions, fill out our shiny new checklists for that sales tax measure, that the expanded requirements on that checklist might include some of the recommendations from these policy memos. And so, for example, and this is the reason why I'm asking, for the livable streets policy, it says, to be eligible for funding, CCTA will require each local jurisdiction to create and schedule meetings of a multidisciplinary, interdepartmental livable street design advisory team to collaboratively review project designs. And so this, sounds a lot like something you would do for Vision Zero, et cetera. And I think it's great. And I think, for the spending in our new sales tax measure to reflect any kind of transformativeness, as we like to say, we have to incorporate these kinds of institutions. The suggestion I was going to get to after asking that question is, I think that hopefully there's a way throughout this TEP development process, local jurisdictions are made aware of these things, right? Especially if it's the authority's intent to make all of these requirements in the new checklist. And so that was one example. Another example is the objective design standards for livable streets, right? It's saying that, to be eligible for funding, and I don't know if that's return to source or discretionary funding under Measure J or what, or both, either way, to be eligible for that funding, you have to apply those objective design standards for roadway frontage and street design. Roadway frontage and street design requirements are usually codified in local ordinances. And so are we going to have to make updates to our ordinances in order to be compliant with the new sales tax measure requirements, right, to get return to source funding and be eligible for discretionary funding? And so, again, going back to the suggestion part, I think now when we're going through this and Tim's doing his roadshow, listening sessions, all that stuff, when he talks to the city managers or the public works directors, hey, we have these policy memos in our CTP 2050. We intend to apply them to the letter. So local jurisdiction, be aware that you need to start propping up these institutions. You might have to make certain policy changes in the next 2 years to be ready. And so it's a lot of change, and it might give some people heartburn when they see that stuff. But now is the time, I think, to start to introduce it instead of, when we get to the end of the EIR or something like that, and people are like, oh, what is this? So I would suggest that maybe the authority, and in conjunction with the TCC, obviously, we have a responsibility and an obligation to talk to our leadership, too, about this kind of stuff, to just get them ready for what might be coming.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jamar, and I appreciate that someone's reading the policies.
Oh, no, I skimmed real quick, and so that's what I found. But yeah, I'll read in a minute and
that
send
one
comments
kind of
later,
stood
but
out.
You're giving me too much
Yeah,
credit.
so just in general, I would say that, this was meant to be kind of a starting point for the conversation on the TEP development. I can't tell you exactly how that process will go. I assume most of it will go on in that TEP committee, but I do agree it would be smart of us to start daylighting this when we're going around to the cities, because some of this will be controversial and some of it won't pass the muster, I would imagine, and make it into a new expenditure plan.
Exactly. And so, yeah, now is I think the time to get that temperature check, right? This is the most comprehensive change to our growth management program requirements, and therefore your ability to access your return to source funds. Are you okay with it? Local jurisdiction, right? Not are you okay, well, yeah, are you okay with it? And if you're not, what can we do to help you comply?
Yeah.
Because 2 years from now, when that new revenue starts flowing in, if hopefully the new sales tax measure passes, you need to be ready for it. So, yeah,
Yep.
that was it. Thank you.
No, that's a great point. I'll talk to management.
I had a related question about the objective design standards. Can you tell us more about the content of those? And I didn't have time to read the memo on that one, but do they vary based on place? So like a city would be able to apply a different design standard than like a rural community?
I'm trying to recall. I don't believe it was broken down like that in terms of urban, suburban, rural.
So it's the same design standard
It's a-
regardless, countywide?
It's a countywide objective design standard that's, focused on, let's call it instead street typology. So it brings into that livable streets playbook and the movement in place where you're looking at activity and land use and what's appropriate for the,
I'd like to see a presentation of those at the TCC so we can have a discussion and daylight them a bit more.
that's a good idea. We can do that.
Thanks. Any more questions? Yes.
I would just like to echo and compliment Member Stamp's review and comment to daylight some of these things, because I'll take it one point further. Not only will eventually the local agencies, be required, assuming everything moves forward, required to adhere for whatever the return to source and what the other options are, but we're also, being asked to endorse everything. So part of that endorsement, I think, needs to, in order to get that, you need to understand what's in it so you can wholly say, yes, we endorse this, we support it, because otherwise you may have certain local agencies coming out and saying, we don't endorse this because of these reasons, and I think that would be a lot of conflict.
Yeah, we not only need endorsement, we need actual resolution, the city.
And we know that some of our town and city managers are, quick to look at something, and you don't, let's not put staff and management in a position where they're on different pages.
No, I think these are great points, because the GMP, changes to the GMP are really where it hits the jurisdictions. I mean, that's,
When did you want comments for the CTP 250?
So our kind of scoping period is open until the 31st of August.
Okay.
So I would say anytime prior to that. Let's see, did I get the date right? Yes, Monday the 31st.
Thank you. Just one point of clarification. You've been using the roots of regional significance nomenclature, and I was wondering if you're including in that the active roots of regional significance that we discussed in our active roots of regional significance planning process and our RTPCs a while back.
When I refer to that, yes, in general, I'm referring to whatever the applicable action plan is. So if it's the new action plans, it is those multimodal facilities.
Okay, yeah, that was my main question, because I noticed you quickly showed a map that showed some projects, and I didn't see one that I thought was in the active roots of regional significance plan. So I was curious if it fell off or was removed, or
Well,
was
yeah,
it
that
deemed
map was
significant?
showing not just routes of regional significance, but projects in general, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're thinking of the right map.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? I've got two. So in the presentation, there was this section where it was transit for all neighborhoods. And I'm not sure if it was, I think it was part of there's 3 visions, and it was one of the statements on visions. Like I said, I kind of got confused. But anyway, again, for transit for all neighborhoods, can you explain more how that would be applied? Because does that mean like this? I think there needs to be clarification that it might not be transit of the same level for all neighborhoods. That, like, are you just, I'm just thinking, again, we're such a diverse county.
Yeah.
There's rural areas, there's cities. That just, if I read it as a layperson, I would think like, oh, I'm going to have an expectation of really great transit, and I live in a more remote location.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It does look different depending on where you are. It could be, you know, Try My Ride. It could be an autonomous shuttle. It could be a mobility hub, you know, that gets you to all that stuff. So yeah, or it could be BRT.
Where does that get clarified?
So in terms of like what the project looks like, or?
Well, again, I get confused with this whole thing, like, okay, do I go to the vision section and then I'm gonna find the build a complete reliable transit network subset, and then within that, there's another set of bullet points, like, where do I, in the CTP, would I find this discussed?
In the CTP, there is a full section on the development of the transformative visions and what all this means. You know, in terms of what this looks like, that's what the 5-star project examples are supposed to demonstrate, is what these projects actually look like, or what these visions actually look like. I mean, are you looking for, like, looking for a specific chapter in the plan, or?
Yeah, because it's a big plan, and I don't,
But yes, it is a 500-page document, but mostly appendices.
and I'll just say, when, there was some place where I was looking at I think it was online, and I was looking at a table of contents, and the table of contents for volume 1 had like multiple chapters 1s and multiple chapter 2s and multiple chapter 3s when I was looking at, and I was like, oh, okay, this might explain why I'm confused.
Yeah, so that should have been, I think that was fixed, but let me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull it up on my end. But yeah, that all should be, there's a chapter on development of the transformative visions, what we heard in the outreach.
Can you explain though why there's multiple chapter 1s in volume 1?
I think that is an issue with the because I noticed that as well. There are 3 volumes, and each have individual chapters. So, yeah,
But online, what we were directed to, like when I clicked on the link and I found the page for the CTP, and then I went to the document that had, I don't know if it was attachments or not attachments, whatever, I clicked on the link and I went to the table of contents and I was looking at volume 1, and volume 1 had multiple chapter 1s in it and multiple chapter 2s.
okay. So I'll still say the Transformative Visions chapter is in there. I can't tell you, I'm trying to pull this up while we're speaking, and it's kind of difficult, so I'm having a hard time responding to you without having it in front of me.
Sure.
But I would certainly be able to address it offline.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did notice what you're talking about. It's just a kind of an odd, yeah, it's.
So my other question that I had was, in the staff report, there's a table that you have that shows, I think it's like the named projects and then the total number of projects. And it's on page 56 of the packet, or it's page 4C-5. But it has the named transit projects and the dollar amount, and then all transit projects. And the named transit projects had a greater total than the all transit projects. And I didn't understand why that would be.
I'm going to have to ask you to ask that again. I was focusing on your last question.
Oh.
And I realized I do have an updated table of contents that I can update the online document with.
Good. Okay, so in the packet, our agenda packet, it's either page 56 of the packet or it's 4C-5. There's a table on there where they've named, where like there's named transit projects and named these projects and named whatever. And when I look at the transit projects, the named transit projects, the total, it's that like, I want to say it's like 31 million or something. And then when it, on the same row, when you look at all transit projects, that number is less than the named transit projects. And I didn't understand why. They're, like, in all the other cases, all transit project column, the numbers get bigger, and I didn't know why transit projects would get smaller.
Where are we at again?
Page 50.
I mean, I'm just wondering if it'd be more useful to do these offline, or?
I just didn't know if it was like a, something I didn't understand about how they, like, is the name, are named projects a subset of all projects?
Yes.
Okay, so there might be a typo there then. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, but if you can submit that in
Yep.
writing, I would be happy to take a look.
Are you going to be shopping this presentation around to others?
We already have, I mean, we've already gone through all of our committees. If there are others who are interested, we're certainly willing to provide presentation. But in terms of our planned outreach, yes, we are wrapping it up now, and then we'll be doing the public scoping meeting in a couple of weeks once the NOP is released.
When you say all of your committees, has it gone to the RTPCs?
It has, the draft has not.
Okay.
So.
So I'll request for WCTAC,
yeah.
we'd like to have
And just a
the
reminder, you know, we did, when we established the kind of the outreach plan for this, it would focus on the CTP task force, which the members of that were nominated by TCC. So the task force and representing the RTPCs. So that group was meant to kind of be the staff level.
I'm just wondering if there's other, since we are representing RTPCs, are there other RTPCs other than WCTAC that would want a presentation of this to their local jurisdictions or members? Maybe we're the only ones who get into
Well,
it.
just on behalf of SWAT, and I think some of Nate's comments earlier, I think definitely the daylighting of some of the GMP stuff and I had those same questions and was marking them off as Member Stamps was saying them. So I think that would be useful for sure for future GMP and the actual target date. I know it says 2050, this would all happen, but is it actually going to happen in 2030? And suddenly we'll have to do it.
If I get a invite and there's room on your agenda, I will be there.
Cool.
But I need that invite.
Great.
Do we have representatives from TransPac and TransPlan? I would imagine all the RTPCs would want to see this, but I could be wrong.
Who's representing other, do we have any representatives from?
Yeah, we're on TransPac, and I think you showed that this was part of your outreach, that you've been to us before.
As part of the development, so when we were developing like the transformative visions and the blueprint, yes, but not in its kind of final format.
And then it's coming back to us in the spring, you said?
It will come back to you, but by that point, it'll be beyond the draft.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you guys are representatives for your RTPCs. It sounds like there's at least 2 of the RTPCs that
I'll
you can follow up
extend
with.
the invite out to all the others.
Okay. And then my only suggestion is when you do come to the RTPCs is maybe break this into smaller units, because it's like, I wanted to ask questions throughout.
Okay. Yeah, and I might consider maybe some different slides. This is more intended for our board and folks who aren't as in the weeds as folks in this room in the RTPCs, so, yeah.
My bad, sorry, nitpicky, but, and reject it on site if you want. For ease of review, would it be possible to separate the appendixes on the website? Individually link all of the appendixes?
Great idea, thank you.
Just have a separate link for each.
Yeah, so like Appendix A, here's a button, Appendix B, here's a button. Just 'cause the project list is alone so big, so just
Yes.
a thought, thank you.
I can do that, or if you need the project lists, if you need just that separated out, I can do that. But I'm open to, yeah, breaking it all out. Okay. Yeah, just give us a couple of days to update the website.
All right, I know we need to ask for public comment, but I just want to do a quick swoop and see if there's any more questions from the committee. All right. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a speaker slip or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica?
I have not received any written or virtual public comments.
Okay. Well, thank you, Matt. I know it's a lot and it's a complicated topic, and we look forward to following it further.
Thank you, everyone.
So that concludes our regular agenda calendar. Is there any other business to discuss? That concludes our meeting, and the meeting is adjourned at 4:17. Thank you all.